Welcome back to another reaction stream. It has been a while. Thank you very much for waiting. And we are going to be talking about Double Gameweek 20 and also about how Gameweek 19 has gone so far. Just the one game left for Chelsea and Fulham. Mitrovic is suspended and there's so much to cover. Remember, the FA Cup and Carabao Cup games could have a direct impact on Gameweek 20, so don't just go out buying Spurs and Man City players because they have a double currently. That could change, and we're going to be covering that in this stream as well. I've already recorded the best free hit team, which will give you an idea in terms of transfers, for example, for Gameweek 20 at the time of the recording, but that will be uploaded and released for everyone this weekend, and members and patrons could already see it if you sign up. So thank you very much to everyone who's already done so. Let's get straight into this one, and you can see how I'm doing so far. 65 points with the -4 hit taken into account, and a Mitrovic captaincy haul, you could say, but it could have been much better. He was on for a 9-pointer and also a game against Chelsea. In the end, just 5, and also no game against Chelsea there with that yellow card around the 80th minute, 70th minute, and it really was undeserved to say the least. But I've actually gone up in rank yet again so far, despite benching quite a lot of points with Botman and Ben White, and we're going to cover that as well in the team selection video, and there's much more to come, so stay tuned. And only next month the Champions League will return, so UCL Fantasy will be back on the channel. So let's get through your questions as always, and thank you very much to everyone who's already tuning in. So let's go through it one by one. Welcome, El Padrino. It's good to see you once again. And also Deathstroke as well. Genius Gamer, it's always a pleasure. Hi, all 68 points, not bad with 2 to play. It definitely isn't bad. Could have been better, I think, in some cases. Obviously, the Mitrovic yellow card was very frustrating, but yeah, that's still obviously a very good score. Sell Walker and Foden or keep? At this point, I'd probably sell, especially Walker. The way I see it, I think Rico Lewis and Ake will be the fullbacks. And what they could do, Man City, is sometimes play Cancelo on the left. I just can't see both Rico Lewis and Cancelo operating in the same team. Both Walker, I could see maybe one start on the double game week. I don't see him starting both, and I just don't think it's worth keeping him. As for Foden, of course, he's always, a great FPL option when he gets the minutes, but it's obviously a big if right now. Mahrez is in form. Grealish is a bit more in favour with Pep Guardiola. So, honestly, I'd probably sell both at this point. Welcome, the Woodstock. Good to see you here. John Darren says, I'm having a stinker. Then again, though, you just can't do well every single week. And look, you could definitely do much better next week. It's obviously a bad score right now, but the average, I believe, is 43 points around that. So I don't think it's a generally high scoring week for a lot of us. Welcome, Alex. Thoughts on Cancelo to Lewis, Botman and Martial to Kane? I would personally go for Botman despite Lewis having the double. I don't see Lewis starting both games in Game Week 20 and also starting in future weeks as well. I think he'll be in and out of the side, but he'll play a much more prominent role as the weeks and months go by, but he won't start every single game. I know obviously at that price is very tempting, but I just go for Botman, honestly. He's facing Fulham in Game Week 20. Newcastle have the best defence, only 11 goals conceded. And Martial to Kane is very straightforward. So I would go for Botman personally and also go for Harry Kane. Welcome, Aaron. Good to see you. Mine was great in Game Week 17, but disaster in Game Week 18 and 19 with the same team. Yeah, so I've personally done pretty well in the 3 game weeks since we've returned. I did really well in Game Week 17. Game Week 18 was a bit, I want to say mixed bag, but it was kind of more average. Still went up in rank. And then Game Week 19 so far has been even better once again. But I think Game Week 17 was definitely the best for me. My captain Kane in Game Week 20. Interesting you should say that because I actually talk about it a lot in my best free hit team. I think he's definitely worth considering. I put a poll out on my channel yesterday and I think 80% of people, as always, have gone for Haaland. But I genuinely think Kane could rival Haaland for the captaincy and maybe even trump him. I really think Kane could do a great job. Welcome, Lager. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. What to do about Cancelo? Honestly, it might sound very simple. I wouldn't overthink it. I would personally sell Cancelo. I don't see him starting both games, maybe one maximum, but I'd be very surprised if he started both. And even if he does start, will he get the 60 minutes necessary? He got subbed off at half-time against Chelsea. The same with Walker. I honestly would sell these players. From Man City, which players would I consider? Haaland, of course, we don't have to talk about him, but the others would be Kevin De Bruyne, Riyad Mahrez, Akanji, and then probably Ederson. Those would be my kind of top 5 for Man City. You could also consider a John Stones or maybe an Ake, but I would personally go for those instead. And if you really want to cover Man City defensively and don't want a headache, Ederson is the one to go for. I've activated my wildcard. Thoughts? I don't know your team situation, how it was looking like before you activated the wildcard, and how many changes you've made. But I personally would say, in general, for a lot of people, it would be best to save the wildcard for later in the season. I personally don't like the idea of wildcarding only 3 game weeks after we had unlimited transfers, but it might be the play for you. Just bear in mind that when we have more doubles and blanks later in the season, you might not be able to go ahead of the curve, and you might need to take a lot of hits and make a lot of transfers to then rival those that will be playing the wild card in that stage of the season. Yeah, what to do with Cancelo? It's going to be a really popular question this week. I personally would sell. There could be a transfer tips video over the next week, and it has been long overdue, and Cancelo will definitely be discussed there. But personally, I think it's just an easy sell for me. Over 7 million for a defender who might not start, that often. It's just very simple for me. If he does regain that spot eventually, of course, he will be back to a very good option. But for the time being, I think he's a sell. When will Gakpo be available in FPL? I think by the next game. He's already in training, and I think Brentford was just a step too soon, but I think in Game Week 20 he should definitely be available, and this is something we discussed even 2 weeks ago when the signing was announced around that time. Welcome, Cyril. Time to offload Cancelo, and for who? Already have Trippier, White, Shaw, Bueno. Good defenders. I personally would go for a Botman. Since you already have the kind of main defenders and teams that you really want to cover, United, Arsenal, Newcastle, the 3 best defences in the recent game weeks. Bueno is a decent cheap option, so I would maybe go for a double up in Newcastle defensively. If not, you could consider an Akanji, but I would just rather go for Botman personally. Let me know your thoughts on that. Thank you, Abhishek. Yeah, Kane has worked out well for me, but I don't really consider him to be a punt. He is the most consistent player bar Erling Haaland, and I'm actually genuinely considering him for the captaincy. I was never going to do it against Palace, I'll be completely honest there. Despite me backing Spurs for the win in that game, I didn't expect a 4-0 win, and I also didn't expect Kane to get a 16-pointer. But for the double game week against Arsenal and City, I think Kane could get another double-digit return, and also with Erling Haaland. It's going to be a really close one. You're going to see my thoughts in the best free hit team video, and I will make it very clear there. But I also want to talk about the captaincy more over the next week. But don't make any transfers yet. Just bear that in mind. Don't do it now because we have the FA Cup. I think United play today, and a lot could change. And what United do, Leeds as well. If they draw, they could have a double in game week 20. The same goes for Man City and Spurs. They could lose their double game week. So there's a lot of things to consider. Fedborn says 71 points, really good stuff. Captain Mount, Riemann, Andreas left to play. So replacement of Che Adams, can you suggest which player? Well, around a similar price, I think Nketiah is a good option. Callum Wilson could enter your thoughts, but as I discussed a lot of times, I would go for a triple up in Newcastle with 2 defenders or Nick Pope in goal and Almiron. That's just the way I would go about it. And if Ivan Toney is clear of suspension and he's fit, I think Ivan Toney's the best option at 7.5 million and below, if you can stretch to him, by the way. So let me know, what your kind of budget entails, and then I can give you a clear answer. But I think Toney would be the ideal one, but there's a lot of ifs and buts with him at the moment. Martial to Toney, yeah, definitely. Just bear in mind there are 2 possible, things that could stop Toney from playing. One is the suspension, and the other one is going to be his injury, of course. So if he's clear on both fronts, I would definitely do it. So glad I didn't get Mitrovic in, now looking to ship Martial to either Mbumo or Toney. Yeah, I think Toney would be the standout for sure. If he's not available, then Mbumo is a decent option, but I just don't think he's anywhere near the same level. And as for Mitrovic, I always knew there was a possibility. I thought that he would get away with it. And if you look at the yellow, it's a really stupid one. It shouldn't have been a yellow card. So I think Mitrovic owners have been very unlucky, to be honest. And it would have been a 9-pointer and another game against Chelsea to look forward to. I think he could easily have gotten maybe 14 points or more. I honestly believe that. What should I do with KDB? Don't sell him, come on. I know he's been very disappointing, but with a double game week, you just can't sell him. I would keep him for now, and if he blanks or doesn't do that well once again, that could be the cue for you to sell him, but for the time being, definitely keep him. Yeah, triple captain Haaland or even Harry Kane. I wouldn't triple captain anybody else this week. It's just one of those 2, but it's a genuine consideration. Most of us will be captaining Haaland, so a way of gaining something over those Haaland captainers is to triple captain him. And also there's a bit of a gap between both games, around 5 days, I believe, which kind of reduces the chances of him being benched, which to be fair, I don't see happening at this point in time anyway. But yeah, it's a really good consideration and one of the best times to do it so far this season, in my opinion. Keeping Foden for the double, I reckon, but Cancelo to Akanji, Ake's on the cards. That could also backfire, because with City, you just never know. Akanji started every single game since Game Week 9 until the one against Chelsea, and then came on at half-time. But I would probably sell Foden personally, but I can understand why you're keeping him. Got no fires. Kepa to Edison, I'm guessing, free transfer. I think that's completely fine. It's a good position to be in. And if you've got 2 free transfers and you can roll the other one going into Game Week 21, even better. Or Andreas to Mitoma. I do like Mitoma. I actually highlighted him in the best free hit team video. I think he's one of the best options if you're looking for a budget midfielder. And Mitoma's been absolutely sensational in the last few months. So yeah, I don't mind that at all. But I would probably rather do the Kepa to Edison transfer. Let's be honest, we've all been waiting for a chance to offload Cancelo to use the funds elsewhere. I was quite quick, actually, so I had Cancelo in the restart, and I think as soon as, Game Week... after Game Week 18, that's when I decided to sell him. I just didn't want a 7 million headache, basically, in defence, so I just got rid of him. And I'm very surprised with what's happened to him, both at club and international level. Best double Game Week to captain, Kane or Haaland? I think it's really close between the two. And I think for a lot of us that are struggling this season, Harry Kane could be the play because he's got such a lower ownership, effective ownership if you captain him. And I generally think he can match Haaland or even outscore him. Hey Dylan, what to do with Foden? I would personally sell, but I can understand if some of you will keep him because even just one start in the double, I could see him doing, really well in that one game. But do I see him starting both? Definitely not. And I could see his minutes managed. Maybe, I'm not sure exactly how many minutes, but not enough maybe to make him a genuine consideration for the captaincy or for you to definitely have him in your team in the long term. Should I sell Mitrovic? I still think Mitrovic is decent despite some poor fixtures, but if you have nothing else to do, then one thing you could do is go to Tony if he's cleared and he doesn't, get that suspension, which is the big issue, and if he's obviously fully fit. If I sell Walker, who should I buy in? Trippier, of course, you probably have already, but maybe a Botman to double up on Newcastle defensively. Ben White, Luke Shaw. It's a bit of an awkward time to kind of buy Shaw unless they get the double, and we'll talk about that very soon as well. But really, I'd probably go for a Botman. Haaland has made Kane less attractive this season, but you can still go for both and do really well. And in my case, I've got 3 premiums, as you can see, with Salah. But honestly, I think if you had to go for 2 premiums in this campaign, it's Kane and Haaland, really. And then you can go for these budget midfielders, Odegaard, Martinelli, Almiron, and they can do just enough for you anyway. So really, I'm looking at it, and I can see what you mean. But I think Harry Kane, he's the best premium besides Haaland, and he's worth going for. Yeah, Kane's on 4 yellows, though, of course. And I think it's kind of a weird one, actually. I'm trying to gather this right now. So I'm not sure exactly when. So it has to be 19 games, right? And that's when the yellows reset. I'm not so sure if Harry Kane, after the Arsenal game, he's going to be clear of that suspension risk. I'm not so sure what the case is going to be there. I actually think it's after the 19th game week or game week 19. So Harry Kane should be completely fine there, but I might be wrong about that. Best replacement for Fernandes? That's a good question. Rashford is a really good like-for-like, offers much better value. We talked about this in Game Week 17 as well. Others would include the likes of Odegaard, and also, it's a really close one. I think they're the best kind of budget options. I wouldn't go for a Sterling, of course, and when you're looking at a higher price, it's just De Bruyne, really. I wouldn't go for Salah at this moment in time. De Bruyne is just really for the double. Mars is another one to consider. I wouldn't really look elsewhere, really. Almiron's also obviously a really good option, but you probably have him already. Evening Dylan, 2 to play, but probably going to drop under 2 million ranks, something like 8th consecutive red arrow, making good decisions in my head that just aren't working. Continued, I'm guessing that's saying, yeah, any tips on to make the game feel fun again? My season's over, so I'm not against bold picks. Yeah, I do recognize that. I've had instances like that, this season, in the last few seasons as well. I think one really good thing you could do, and of course it could backfire like Mitrovic, is going for Harry Kane as your captain. I think that is a start. Not only are you getting in a player that isn't going to be owned by the vast majority of the game, but he's also one of the most consistent, and he's not going to be captained by that many players. So rather than just captaining Haaland, you could go for Kane, who's just as reliable, you could argue, if not even more. So I'd probably say that's a start. In terms of other things you could do, it's going to be difficult because even those like Luke Shaw, Kepa Arrizabalaga, these kind of lower owned players from Game Week 17, a lot of people are catching on them right now. So it's going to be a tricky one. But maybe one thing you could consider is a double up or even triple up in Arsenal offensively, especially from Game Week 22 onwards. I think that could really place you in a good position, especially if they double in Game Week 23. So going for Odegaard, Saka and Martinelli, that could be the play, or Nketiah up front. I would personally go for a double up in Arsenal offensively and then go for a Ben White in the back line. But I think a few things like that could definitely change the course of your season. I do feel for you, and don't take it to heart, obviously. And I think it just goes to show that FPL is getting tougher, and finishing in the top 10k isn't as easy as it used to be, in my opinion. Then in captain Haaland for United and Tottenham or Kane. Like I said, it's a really close call. You can see my full thoughts in the best free hit team video when it's released around the weekend. I'm personally favouring Kane at the moment, and that's where my captaincy armband is on right now. I'll talk about this and confirm it in the team selection and deadline stream, but I really have a good feeling about Harry Kane. Is Mount playing the next game? I think so. I can't tell you for sure, but Chelsea play next week, and I think there's plenty of time for Mount to recover. It just depends on the extent of his injury. I'm 700k. Where do you think I can finish? I get these questions quite a lot every year. I think you could still finish top 50k or even higher, and that's a really good rank in my opinion, especially with how difficult the game can become. So yeah, I think top 50k is still doable. Nketiah or Tony? If Tony is completely fit and he's got no suspension, it's Ivan Tony. Which one should I sell, KDB or Martial or Cancelo? Don't sell KDB. The ones you want to sell are Martial and Cancelo. I would sell both of them. Son in? No, I would not go for Son. Despite his return, that deflected goal, I just wouldn't go for Heung-min Son at this moment in time. And I actually discussed Spurs assets in the best free hit team video. Perisic is someone to consider. Kulusevski, who I expect to be available. And of course, Harry Kane, who is the best option by far. But I'd rather go for Kulusevski. Welcome, One Hider. Good to see you. Best replacement for Cancelo. You have Trippier, Shaw, White, Botman. You've got the four best. That's the way I see it. So what you could do is either go for a Man City defender like a Kanji or Ake, or I would just go completely downgrade that position, go to a Bueno, and use that extra money to invest in a fifth midfielder or a third forward. That's what I would do. Brighton best assets, March or Matoma? I'd say Matoma. He's very good on the eye. I saw him live at the Emirates, and he's just a really good player in general. I'd probably go for Matoma. Hey Dylan, thoughts on Foden to Matoma and Darwin to Kane for -4? I do like that. I'd probably go ahead with it, to be honest. Matoma is also someone you could play against Liverpool. Don't be put off the fixture. I genuinely think Matoma could get a double-digit return in that game. Mbeumo's a good option as a striker. Like I said, he's a decent option, especially if you want a replacement for someone like Martial, for example, but Tony is the ideal one. If he's fit and he's cleared to play, Tony's definitely the one you'd want to go for. I have a midfield, Rashford, Almiron, Salah, Mount and Martinelli, and have 2 transfers. Honestly, I don't know who should I replace. I would personally do Salah to De Bruyne if City continue and have that double game week. Obviously, just wait for the FA Cup games to finish first. So that's one transfer. The other one would be Mason Mount to either Odegaard or Saka. That's what I would personally do with your team. Darwin and Robertson to Kane and Stones for a -4. I like that. I'm still a bit concerned about Stones. I think he will continue to start and probably do, start both games in the double. But long term, I'm a bit concerned about him. So I'd like the Kane move, of course. There's no doubt about it. And Robertson to Stones looks good. I think it's worth the -4. But I think Akanji might be the most nailed on City defender. And of course, I could be wrong about that. I'll probably put a poll out on my channel asking you lot who your favourite Man City defender is right now. 85 points looks really good, King. Mitrovic for Martinelli. I'm not sure because it depends which striker you bring in and which midfielder you take out for Martinelli. So it's a bit of a tricky one there. If you're talking about who to start in Game Week 20, then I'd probably go for Martinelli, but that's still quite a close one. Salah to De Bruyne or Mount to Odegaard or both for a -4. This week it'd be Salah to De Bruyne, and you could get Odegaard in Game Week 21, for example, or 22. Would you go Kane? Go for Kane because of the double -4, or if Tony's a go, just get him for the free transfer. I'd probably get Kane for the -4. And also with Tony, he's injured at the moment and he also could be suspended. There's 2 things to watch out for him. Hi, is there a point in keeping Salah and KDB when cheaper players deliver so much more? Great question. The honest answer is no. There isn't much of a reason. The reason why I'm probably going to go for Kevin De Bruyne is because of the double. So if City maintain that double in 20, I'm probably going to get KDB in for Salah, and then long term I can downgrade him to Odegaard. So in the long run, I think Rashford, Almiron, Martinelli and Odegaard is the midfield 4 you want. If you're going for a midfield 5, then you could also include someone like Matoma, and I don't think you really need a Salah, a De Bruyne or another premium option, so to speak, in the midfield. I'd rather go for Harry Kane up front. Force some Cancelo to Stones and Darwin to Kane for a -4. Like I said, it's a good set of transfers. I think it's worth it, but I probably would reconsider with Stones just in case. You know, I've got a lot of doubts about the Man City defenders, but it's still a good set of transfers. Haaland has been bad since the World Cup, but he still scored goals. That's the thing. He has missed a lot of chances, even against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, and in every game you could point towards a few chances he has missed. It could be he's a bit rusty or whatever, and he does have these kind of, let's say, patches where he maybe doesn't score as many goals as he should, but he's still scoring goals. That's the thing with him, and I could see him still doing really well in the double game week. It's hard to go against him, but with Harry Kane, you have a genuine alternative. Haaland and Kane are the best combo right now. Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why I went for it in Game Week 17, and I discussed this many times in detail in the streams and videos. It's not always that simple, because Salah, after the Villa game, a lot of people would have maybe brought him in, and then with De Bruyne, of course, he's looked great, by the way. He's been very unlucky not to get more returns, but with De Bruyne, he relies a lot on players finishing his chances, but with Harry Kane, he scores the chances himself, so he can always rely on those points there. Any good Spurs or City players? Well, remember, once again, don't just bring in Spurs and City players now because they could lose their double in 20. But from Spurs, Perisic, Kulusevski and Kane, with Kane obviously being the best one. And from Man City, my top three would be Haaland, De Bruyne and probably Akanji. A few others to consider would include Mahrez, who's been in great form. Dalot is back, could be a great option to double up with Shaw from Game Week 22. That is true. Would I want to double up on United defensively though? No, but that is still a good consideration, and I do like Dalot as an FPL option. And you have to say, United have been very good recently. Is Salah to KDB one free transfer good? Yes, but once again, don't make the transfer now, even if there are price rises or anything like that. Just wait a little bit. Don't make that transfer just yet. Mitrovic for Tony or Botman for Patterson, or both one free transfer? I like Botman for Patterson, especially with Tony. Once again, if he's fully fit and he's cleared, that's the better transfer for now, because I could see him doing really well against Bournemouth. But yeah, I'd probably do Tony in first, but there's two things to look out for there. Bring in Botman for Patterson later on in Game Week 21 or 22. Salah or KDB? I still think it's a really close call between the two. I went for Salah, and I still think he's the slightly better option of the two, but I might go from Salah to KDB simply because of the double. Long term, I want to downgrade to Odegaard at the moment. I do like Kane and would even eye up the triple captaincy if not for him being on 4 yellow cards. Yeah, I completely agree, Harry. That's the one thing that would put me off triple captaining him. 59 points, glad I got rid of Nunez, Kane, Hall and City clean sheet, causing an 80k drop, but I'm happy to be at 210k. That's a good rank to be in. 560k at the restart. Suggestions on Wilson or Mount or Salah to KDB? Good question. I think Salah to KDB because he's got a double. KDB's been in great form. Don't let the points kind of fool you. I think KDB will get some returns in the double. I genuinely believe that. And if he gets that double for sure, and you know the FA Cup results go in a certain way, I'm going to be getting KDB in for Salah. My defenders are so poor apart from Trippier. Got James, Cancelo, Davis, Martinez. Do I need to go wildcard or take minus hit for my 4 players? It's a good question. I mean, with Lisandro Martinez, for example, is always going to be a bit of a risk getting him in when Argentina just won the World Cup, and players like him were always going to take a bit of a break. With Davis, Spurs have been poor defensively for a long time. Obviously, they kept the clean sheet in the last game. Cancelo, I have to say, you've been very unlucky on that, and also Reece James. Would I wildcard? No. If you can, I'd avoid it. Would I take hits? Maybe a -4, but don't go overboard. So what you could do is maybe get in an Akanji, get in the likes of Botman and Ben White, you know, gradually. But it's all about timing. For example, bringing in White now, I wouldn't recommend it. That's something to maybe leave for Game Week 21 or 22. KDB or Salah? We've been getting this question a lot since the restart, and I've said Salah all along, but with the double in mind, I'm looking to go to KDB. And with also the form being factored in and the eye test, I think De Bruyne has been far better than Salah, actually. It's just Salah's got more points with that, you know, haul against Villa. Ben White as a Cancelo replacement, I like it, but that's more so for Game Week 22. Right now, I don't think it's a good time to buy Ben White. He's facing Tottenham and Man United next. I don't think Arsenal will keep a clean sheet in either game. Mbeumo as a differential for 3 to 4 weeks. I do like Mbeumo as an option for the short term, but Tony for me is the best option. If Kane gets yellow in Arsenal, he probably would miss the second game in 19. Yeah, I think so. And also, I believe it's when the player has played his 19th game, or when his club has played the 19th game. Remember, we had some suspensions and stuff like that this season. So I'm pretty sure. I'm going to have to double check this because I don't want to get this wrong. With Arsenal players, for example, If Saliba or Saka get a yellow card, they're definitely missing the United game in Game Week 20, so bear that in mind. Is Tony playing the next game? I can't tell you for sure, because even if he's fit, he could be suspended. There's two things to look out for there. What do you think about Brighton Ferguson? If you're looking for a budget forward, I think he'd be one of my favourite ones. And also Greenwood still, one of those two for sure. And Ferguson looks like the best one. But Welbeck's going to be back in the side in the FA Cup. And Welbeck is so important to how Brighton play. He brings in these wingers and midfielders into the equation and opens up the spaces for them. So I actually think Welbeck could take the spot once again, despite Ferguson being really, doing a great job in the last few game weeks. But yeah, I like him as a budget option. Why not? Bueno or Rico Lewis in for Cancelo? I'd still go for Bueno long term. With Rico Lewis, it's going to be a bit of a headache. Look, I can understand the appeal for Rico Lewis. I think he'll get more game time this season, of course, and he's been doing really well. But yeah, I'd still go for Bueno from those two. As for Kane and for Greenwood, looks great. And that front three is solid. Darwin Nunez still lets it down for me, though. Mitro plus Andreas or Martinelli and Greenwood? Mitro and Andreas looks like a better duo overall. Having said that, Martinelli is the best FPL option of all the players you've mentioned, and if you have good squad depth and Greenwood is always going to be third on your bench anyway, then I'd just go for Martinelli. Best replacement for Havertz and Cucurella? For Cucurella, once again, one of those four that we always mention: Trippier, Botman, Shaw, and Ben White. And as for Havertz replacements, I would say Tony if he's fit and if he's not suspended. Any news on Sterling? No. Obviously, he came off very early against City. Chelsea are very unfortunate in the last few weeks with all the injuries they've gotten. But either way with Sterling, obviously, for those that had him for the double game week, there could be a chance of him starting against Fulham. But after that, I'd look to sell. Got Wilson -4 to who? I'd say Tony if he's fit and if he's not suspended. Is Martial out for Mbumo good considering Brentford's fixtures? Yes, I think so. I'm not a big fan of Mbumo, and he is a decent option at that price and below, but my preference would be Tony. So if he's fit, if he's available, he is the one I'd look to go to. Honestly, Kat, I would probably sell both. It could be a matter of timing as well. So Cancelo you could sell to a City defender or just downgrade that position to someone like Bueno, for example. And with Mason Mount, you could get rid of him in Game Week 22 for an Odegaard. That's what I'd look to do for your situation. Yeah, I'd probably sell Cancelo. And I did it last week heading into the double game week here. For Cucurella, unfortunately, it wasn't ideal. But yeah, honestly, I'd look to sell Cancelo. Kane for a -4. I would do it, but just hold off with your transfers, wait a little bit, and once again, some doubles could be taken away depending on the FA Cup, and that could be really crucial. Kane, Tony, and Foden for Darwin, Havertz, and De Bruyne for a -8. I do like, Kane and Tony in, but there's so many things that could go wrong here. I don't see Foden starting both games, so he could be a headache, and I think De Bruyne will start both and do really well. So that already puts me off. Then Ivan Toney, there are two things that could stop him from playing in Game Week 20, so that's already kind of something to keep an eye on. Harry Kane, of course, speaks for himself. He's a great transfer, and if Toney and Foden, are available and start, then of course, as a trio, that looks fantastic. I have to say, though, there's too many question marks right now, and I would wait until next week. And if Tony is clear and he's fit to play and all of that, which I've mentioned a lot of times already in this video, then I would go for it. But getting rid of De Bruyne doesn't sit right with me. I'll be completely honest there. Thank you, by the way. Let me just get your super chat up right now. I appreciate that. You never walk alone, Anchor, as always. Belated Happy New Year. Glad to catch you live again. As always, much appreciate your content. Thank you very much. I wish you a Happy New Year as well. And yeah, I think it has been a little bit of a while, but it's good to see you once again. Of course, the World Cup was in the middle of everything. We are back. And yeah, it's good that I could finally do a stream. I think that's quite maybe friendly for your time zone as well. Saul Nunez, yeah, I would. I even said this last week against Brentford. I thought we'd get chances, but I still didn't have that confidence in him scoring goals. I bought Kane and Akanji for double game week 20, got rid of Cancelo Nunez. I like that. Once again, it could be a bit risky to make early transfers with the FA Cup having a big impact as well, but I still think it'll pay off. I'm on 76 points thanks to Kane captaincy and Rodrigo. Wow, the Kane captaincy is a really big thing there. Salah to KDB and Darwin to Kane for a -8, would you? Yes, I would. Even though I like Salah, facing Brighton, I think De Bruyne with a double is better, and then Kane is just much better than Darwin Nunez. So yeah, I think it's worth it. Son in? No, I honestly wouldn't go for him. Look, he can haul against City and Arsenal, two teams he tends to do really well against, but I just don't think he's worth the money. Grealish, no, I wouldn't go for him. I'd rather go for Mahrez or De Bruyne midfield, Akanji or Edison to cover the defence, and not to mention Haaland. He's not a bad option, and Grealish has been fairly decent in terms of assists, but I wouldn't go for him. I wouldn't say Cancelo's definitely not playing, but do you think he's going to start both games in the double? I don't think so. I see him starting maybe one. So, yeah, I just wouldn't go for him. UCL is going to be back in February. It always is. So another month left for that. Thorson Matoma. I actually discussed him in my best free hit team video, and he was actually originally going to feature in that and be in the team as a bench option. And to be honest, he could still, in the place of Rashford, for example, in that situation, you could go for Matoma. I generally think he's a great option against Liverpool. Should I bring in Shaw or wait? Well, Shaw against City. An interesting fact, actually, is United haven't conceded a home goal at Old Trafford, of course, in the Premier League since the 4th of September. And they've been very impressive defensively recently. But against City, I think they'll concede. So I would probably wait a little bit longer until getting Shaw in. But yeah, he is someone worth considering and getting into your team, but maybe not this week. In terms of the free hit, so I made the video, and look, with the free hit, it's for those that want to use it and also to help with transfer plans, just to give an idea of what I generally think is the best kind of squad for that particular game week. Would I play the free hit? I probably wouldn't. I think there are going to be better opportunities with doubles and blanks later in the season, but it just depends. If your team, you think it's not good at all for this game week, but you'd like it for future ones, then maybe it's worth it. It's all circumstantial and team dependent, but I think for most people, it's best to save the free hit for another time. Who's the most nailed, Akanji or Ake? I would say Akanji, and I discussed this in the free hit team video. Akanji has started every single Premier League game since game week 9 until the one against Chelsea, of course, and I would expect him to start both, actually, in the double. I could be wrong, but I think he's the most nailed. Sold Cancelo for Dalot for a punt this week. Let's wait and see if he gets back into the side instantly. I think he will eventually, and my initial prediction from Game Week 17 was that Dalot would come back in around Game Week 20. Let's see if that's the case, but yeah, I don't think that's a bad transfer. Stones is looking good right now. The way I'd rank it currently is Akanji first, Stones second, probably Ake third, and then you'd look at someone like Rico Lewis or Cancelo, but very difficult. Just joined, have you been over best Cancelo replacements? Not much has changed. I've always said the same replacements in the last streams and videos. For me, the 4 best defenders in the game currently are Trippier. I'm not sure about the order of the rest of them. So basically Shaw, White and Botman. I think those are the 4 best defenders. And if you want someone for this game week specifically, then I'd look at City 1, such as Akanji or Stones. Keep Mount or sell him for Odegaard, Saka, Matoma. If you have 2 free transfers, then I'd sell him now, probably to an Odegaard or Saka. But if you only have 1 free transfer, Aaron, what I would do is just hold Mount for Palace, if he is fit, of course, and then maybe make the transfer in Game Week 22. Who do I captain, Haaland or Kane? I'm looking at Kane right now, and I'll discuss this in the free hit team video. It's really close between the two, but especially if you're in a position where you're not really too happy and you want to climb the ranks, I think Kane is the play. For those that are in a really good position and want to hold, maybe Haaland's just a safer pick, but it's all kind of dependent on your situation. I think it's going to be really close between the two, and it could go either way. Best City players to go for? I think we covered this already. So De Bruyne, obviously Haaland, we don't need to talk about him. So apart from him, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Akanji, Stones and Edison. So it just really depends on which positions you really want to fill. The game week isn't finished just yet. There's one more game, and that's the double for Chelsea and Fulham. And I think that's going to be played on the 12th of January. So there's still one more game. Left Cancelo in and then bring Shaw. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I thought Shaw would do well, maybe get 6 to 9 points, but I didn't expect a 15-pointer. He's been absolutely fantastic. I will be making a wildcard video, so I'm just going to save that for the video. I'm not sure exactly when I'll release it. I'm probably going to record over the weekend, and then maybe it'll be out by the Monday or something like that. I'll let you know. But the best wildcard team, that's going to be out soon, and the same goes for the free hit team and also the team selection. I've also been holding out on making content because the FA Cup could really make a big impact on the double game weeks in 20, and I didn't want to just kind of go gung-ho with all these videos and stuff when they could be, out of date really in a day or two. Mount out injured, yes, that's why I missed out against City. And look, he could feature against Fulham, but yeah, if he doesn't, then it will be a bit of a disaster. Yeah. Thank you, John, as always. What are we doing with Kepa? I'd still probably hold. You know, I don't think Chelsea are great defensively, and I knew that when I bought him in. But with the fixtures he had and also the double, I thought he was worth it. You know, if you were to sell him, who would I go to? Nick Pope or Raya, probably. But I probably would keep Kepa at this moment in time. And I actually think Chelsea will keep a clean sheet against Palace. They'll concede to Fulham, but I think they'll keep a clean sheet to Palace in 20. I didn't have Haaland and Cancelo. Can't get to De Bruyne for my third City player. Who would you bring in? I'd say Mahrez, Dixie. If you want a attacker, Mahrez is the one right now. I think he's the most in form. Just checking, is Mitrovic missing the Chelsea game? Yes, he's definitely missing it. I know the game hasn't flagged him, but he's got his 5th yellow card. It wasn't a yellow, but he got it, and he's going to be missing out, unfortunately. I'd probably bench Shaw this week, Owa. I'm going to be talking about this in the team selection video, and I don't see a clean sheet for United, despite their great defensive record. Greenwood to Kane and Salah to Odegaard for a -4. Yeah, I'd go for it, honestly. I think long-term Odegaard's better than Salah right now, which seems crazy, by the way. I have Meslier in for a cheap, good fixture, playing Villa and Forest next. Should I sell and go Salah out and get Edison in for a -4? Well, you had Meslier in for a reason, and with those fixtures, I'd probably keep. And I don't think it's worth taking a hit for a goalkeeper, even if Edison plays in the best team in the league or one of the best, and also has a double. I wouldn't do that. I have Doherty and Ward besides main free players Trippier, Cancel and Saliba, but now I don't feel well having Ward and Doherty. Should I sell the free, or who should I keep? I think that's fine. And with the double game week, you wouldn't sell Doherty right now. I don't think Doherty will keep his place long term. I think Emerson could get a game, even in the double. But is it the right time to sell him? I don't think so. Which team is worth tripling up on long term? I'd say Arsenal or Newcastle. I think they're the two best teams in terms of fantasy assets, value, and also who's nailed. I think those two teams for sure. Welcome, Triple B. Good to see you. Would you get rid of Mitrovic and maybe get him in until game week 23? Yeah, I think Ivan Toney. So the way I'm probably going to play it is if Toney is available and there's no suspension, I'm going to do Mitrovic to Toney, even for a -4 potentially. But if Toney isn't available, I don't really like the other striker options that much, and I'd probably keep Mitrovic for now. Keep Trossard for one more week or sell? I'd sell him. Who's the best replacement? Is it worth to buy Odegaard this game week? The thing is with Odegaard, even against Tottenham and Man United, I could see him doing something. He's been fantastic all season, and in the last 4 or 5 games, you could argue he's player of the month in November and December. So I'd probably go to Odegaard. I think that's the right call. I can understand why you asked that, because you could argue, well, Odegaard, it's not really the best time to buy him in, and I would say game week 22 is. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a bit early, and also I could see Odegaard doing something in one of those 2 games. Welcome. Greetings to you as well. Do you think Cancelo will start in the next 2 games? I think he'll start one of the next 2. I don't see him starting both, and he's not worth over 7 million, that's for sure. I have Trippier, Botman, White, Patterson, KDB, Saka, Rashford, Almiron, Andreas, Kane, Haaland, Darwin, and 1 free transfer. Should I upgrade Patterson to Akanji or upgrade Rashford to Mahrez or Grealish? I think Rashford is better than Mahrez and Grealish long term, so I'd keep him. I'd do Patterson to Akanji. Sell Mitrovic or Darwin? I'd rather sell Darwin Nunez and keep Mitrovic, to be honest. Thank you to everyone, by the way, for tuning in. If you haven't already, you know what to do as always. Smash the like button and subscribe for new. It really helps out the channel. Let's try to get this stream to over 100 likes, and let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers. We're getting ever closer. Thank you very much for all your support, and also to all the channel members and patrons. Remember, you can check out my Patreon, patreon.com/DylanRCM. It'd be greatly appreciated. And thank you to everyone who's already signed up, like I said before. And let's go through some more questions. Cancelo keep or sell? I'd sell him. Despite the double, I'd sell him. Thank you, John, and thank you, Lager, as always. So we might as well cover this because I've kind of briefly alluded to it, but we want to get some kind of a reliable source talking about this, get it on screen, easy to follow, and all of that. So let's go to a tweet by Ben Krellin where he makes everything very, very simple here. So let's read this. So he says, if either Spurs or Man City draw in the FA Cup, they won't double in Game Week 20. If Man United and either Palace or Leeds avoid draws, then they might double in Game Week 20. So that is key information, and that's why, if you haven't already, don't make transfers today or tomorrow or on the Sunday if you can. And don't be, you know, kind of, let's say, attracted to these price rises and stuff. And don't just be tempted by that. Just wait a little bit, have more information. Once the FA Cup games are kind of over in a few days' time, that's when you can start to make your definitive transfer plans. Right now, don't do it. I'm not going to be making a team selection video for the time being. I want to wait until at least until next week, I'd say, a bit early next week before making that. And I generally wouldn't recommend getting the City and United, or United, Spurs players, whatever it may be. Don't get them in just yet. Wait a little bit. And once we have confirmation of doubles, for example, if Shaw gets a double in 20, then you can start to bring him in, for example. But yeah, it's really key to wait, be patient, and don't go overboard with early transfers. Mount playing versus Fulham, I can't tell you that for sure. My gut feeling is that he'll be available, but I don't know his injury. So I honestly could be completely wrong about that. Yes, I would sell both, but maybe not in Game Week 20, maybe in Game Week 21. I could see Chelsea beating Palace 2-0 or something like that, and I could see one of them doing well. Who's the best striker asset to put in my team long term? Well, apart from Haaland and Kane, who I think are the best options in the game, I'd say Tony if he's fully fit and not suspended. Have Walker, Akanji and Cucurella. I think Akanji's fine. I wouldn't be worried about him. Cucurella I'd keep in Game Week 20, but then look to sell. As for Walker, I'd probably sell right now. Man City players have killed me. Got Cancelo, Foden and Haaland. I mean, normally they're three great FPL options, and Haaland is still good. Obviously, he's been missing chances. I don't know what's happened to Cancelo, and Foden has always been a bit of a troll. And I'm very surprised, actually, because he had that spell early in the season. He scored a hat-trick, wasn't it, against United. Also looked really good up until the Liverpool game. Had a goal, you could argue, wrongfully disallowed there. After that, it's just constant benchings, and he's been an absolute headache, really. So I do feel for you. No, there's no update on Tony's suspension. Exactly right. That's why I keep mentioning it, because, a lot of people have forgotten, and I'll be honest, I really want Tony in my team. He's going to be featuring in the best wildcard and free hit team videos, but if we get an update, that could change things for sure. We need to see the starting lineup for the FA Cup games before doing transfers. Not only that, we need to see what the results are and how that affects Game Week 20. Oh, best attacking Newcastle assets, it's just Almiron for me. I completely agree there, Doug. I'd go for double Newcastle defence in Botman and Trippier, or go for Nick Pope in goal and Almiron. If you were to go for another Newcastle attacker, it'd be Wilson, I'd say, but I'd rather go for the double up defensively. Only 11 goals conceded. That is absolutely ridiculous. Welcome, Waysen. Good to see you. I would love to do a wildcard draft, but I'd rather think about it, and I'm going to be making a dedicated video, so I think it's just best to wait for that video to come out. I'll be doing more research, and obviously if I can, I'll try to push that video out for a little bit longer, wait for the FA Cup games, have more information, and then I can give you a more definitive, up-to-date, and also just more logical wildcard team, because it could be out of date if I made one now on screen, or if I made a video tomorrow, for example. So I'll be saving that wildcard video for early next week. Sell Sterling amount, once again, I'd probably do it. Just a matter of timing. I'd probably keep him for the Palace game, then look to sell. With a midfield of Rashford, Almiron, Martinelli and Andreas, would you downgrade or upgrade Foden? Great question. I think long-term I'd downgrade, so I would go from Foden to Odegaard. But for double game week 20, if City remain with a double, and as you can see on screen, the Ben Crellin tweet, it kind of summarizes everything. For this week specifically, I'd go to De Bruyne or Mahrez. But in the long term, it's Odegaard for sure. That is the play. Best timing to make transfers for next week, after the FA Cup games are done, and I'd say close to the deadline, really. There's only Ederson and Haaland nailed spots in City. At the moment, it looks like it. Even De Bruyne, but that could easily change as well. And I would not be surprised if De Bruyne was benched in one of the next 3 games. Thank you, Aaron, as always. Selling Nunez, who is the best replacement for him? Oh, I'd say Tony. If he's available and all of that, which I don't want to repeat again, I'd say Tony's the best replacement. Apart from him, I still like Mitrovic, and I'd also look at Nketiah, especially from Game Week 22 onwards. White or Shaw? For this week, I'd probably still say Shaw. And at the moment, I think Shaw's the slightly better option. 5.6 million midfielder, I'd say Mitoma or Jensen. If I had to pick one, it's definitely Mitoma. How do you feel about Darwin to Kane, Cancelo to Stones, and then Reece James to Botman -4? It looks fantastic. I'd go for it. Once again, I said this to someone else earlier. With Stones, I'm still a bit unsure about him. But he should start both games if I had to say yes or no. And the other transfers are fantastic. Who can replace Van Dijk? In your FPL team, once again, one of those 4 that I always talk about. Trippier, Botman, White, Shaw. And if you want someone for this week, I think a City defender has to do, and I'd go for a Akanji or Stones. Never got Mitrovic, Saka and Kane except for Game Week 1 in my team, and now I'm at 120k rank. How would you evaluate that? It just shows that no one's absolutely essential. You could argue someone like Haaland is, Kieran Trippier, for example, but you can still find other ways of getting points. And Harry Kane, I think, is if you were to bring him in, for example, you could maybe push up even more. But yeah, these options, you can't cover everyone. That's the moral of the story. Instead of Saka, you can go for Odegaard and Martinelli, who are cheaper. Instead of Mitrovic, you can go for Tony, who's got even more points. And instead of Harry Kane, you could invest the money in other positions as well. I recommend trusted owners to keep hold of him for the next Double Gameweek 21. The thing is, though, is he going to start those 2 games? And, you know, with the form Mitoma's in, it's very difficult to make that suggestion. Mara's replacing Foden and Stone's replacing Cancelo. Looks good to me. In the long term, I'd be concerned about them, but for Game Week 20, I like it. I'm going to now go to a few other screens, actually. So we'll talk about this in the deadline stream as well. Man City are top of the fixture ticker. Newcastle are now second. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were bottom maybe a few weeks ago. Leeds, Arsenal, Brentford complete the top 5. As you can see, fixtures like Bournemouth, Leeds and Southampton look fantastic for Ivan Toney. So if he's fit, I think he's a great option. And let's just hope the suspension doesn't happen as well. In terms of bottom of this list, you'll see Palace, Leicester, Liverpool, Bournemouth and Aston Villa. And I know there's a lot of love for Luka Dean and other Villa assets recently. I never really saw it for the defenders. And as for Liverpool, I mean, even with the likes of Robertson, I thought he'd do even better. Maybe keep 1 clean sheet up until now. It's even worse than I feared. And Liverpool assets are looking pretty poor. Even Salah, you know, you look at those fixtures, you look at his price, you're not going to captain him. You see other players like De Bruyne potentially doubling in 20. There's a lot of reasons to sell at the moment. In terms of predicted points, you see Haaland, De Bruyne, Kane, Cancelo, Son in the top 5. I would actually put Kane above De Bruyne, but a really good list there. And this is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. You also see the likes of Edison, Akanji, Gundogan, John Stones, and Hugo Lloris. So the double game weekers are favoured. And as you can see, Man City are definitely backed in this double game week. In terms of price changes, Nick Pope is about to go up according to FPL statistics.co.uk. You also have a few others like Harry Kane, who, you know, it's only a matter of time before he's going to go up. And also Nketiah could be going up very soon. But don't make early transfers. Don't be bogged down too much about prices. In terms of those going down, Cancelo, Foden, you know, that's all understandable. Even Laporte, it looks like he could go down too. So check out these sites. They're very, very crucial and they are very, very impressive. And they also help with your FPL decisions. Another one is FPL.team, which I use for my videos as well sometimes. It helps you to visualize your team in future weeks. And the same goes for other ones like FF Stuff. So one quick comparison is Kane versus Haaland. We're going to talk about this a lot until the deadline. The captaincy. I would not go for anyone else other than these two. You could consider De Bruyne as an outside captaincy punt, but I would generally go for either Kane or Haaland. And at the moment, I've got the armband on Harry Kane. I think he can do really well against Arsenal and potentially get a return against Man City as well. And he's, of course, on penalties. The yellow card is a bit of a worry, but really, I think Kane is worth it. Look at these stats, by the way. Some of them are absolutely identical. Shots on target, 34 for Haaland, 33 for Kane. Both of them 65 shots overall. Absolutely ridiculous. And a similar amount of assists. Expected assists is very similar as well. Big chances created, 7 for Kane, 8 for Haaland. Key passes, obviously Kane is significantly better in that regard. Shots in the box, both of them around 50 to 60. So identical stats for two of the best strikers in the league. And I think both of them are fantastic. I'm happy to have had both of them since Game Week 17. And I think actually going for Kane since Game Week 17 has been a real big reason why I've gone from around 1.1 million in Game Week 17 to around 300k now heading into Game Week 20 as well. Thank you, Rock and Roll. I appreciate you moderating the chat. Let's now go back to my team, but I want to see your thoughts in the live chat. Who would you go for as captain, Kane or Haaland? We're going to put polls out. Don't worry about that in future streams and stuff. But in a poll I put out on my channel, Haaland is winning the kind of vote by a landslide, as he tends to do. But I think Kane has to be, you know, in the consideration. So this is my team once again. You can see kind of rundown. We're going to talk about this in detail, my team selection. But Kepa, Cucurella blanking, 2 pointers so far. But still one more game against Fulham. Let's see how they do against a Fulham side without Mitrovic. Obviously, speak of the devil. He was on for a big haul and a second game in the double game week. Unfortunately, an undeserved yellow card ruined that. Harry Kane with a 16 points against Palace. Haaland with, with a blank, which was quite surprising. Andreas coming off just before 60 minutes. Salah with a 2-pointer. Martinelli also blanking. So the midfield has been very disappointing for me. Rashford with the only return there, and it was very late on. White and Botman, as you can see, on my bench. But another kind of start of the game week was Luke Shaw with a 15-pointer, and that's now 32 points for him in 3 game weeks, and he's also amassed 8 bonus points, which is absolutely ridiculous. The other one is Kieran Trippier with 8 points away to Arsenal, which just shows how much of a quality FPL asset he is at the moment. I agree, downgrade options such as Mitoma, Somerville and Odegaard look better. However, you're right, Mars is in the mix. KDB I'd have to take a hit for. Yeah, that is a good point there. In your situation, I'd probably go for Mahrez and then later down the line move Mahrez on to Odegaard, Goldhead. And also, when you consider form, at least FPL form, I think Mahrez is the best kind of player in City's ranks besides Haaland. And as for KDB, is he worth a -4? I'd say he is, but long term, you probably wouldn't want him. So I'd probably go to Mahrez in that situation. -4 for Mount to Saka? No. I think Saka's a better option, but considering the fixtures and also timing, I just do that for free in Game Week 22. Or even in 21. Opinions on going for Stones or Akanji based on who's rested in FA Cup? Yeah, I think that's completely fine. So if Akanji starts in the FA Cup and Stones is benched, I'd probably be more inclined to go for Stones in that case. -4 Darwin and Mount out for Kane and 6.2 million midfielder. What 6.2 million midfielder though? You've already got the two best ones, to be fair. I'd say Mitoma, Ayub. I think he's the best one. Mitrovic to Tony, if Tony will play. Yes. And if not, Akanji or Botman to Cancelo. Yeah, I think that's about right. I would do the exact same as you there, Gil. So if Tony's available, he's cleared, I'd go to him from Mitrovic. If he isn't, though, I just keep Mitrovic and then get rid of Cancelo for one of those two defenders you said. And Botman, for me, is the best pick long-term. Surprised to see such a strong lineup from Man United, but nice to see Dalot and Antony are healthy. Do you rate Dalot over Shaw moving forwards? When Dalot reclaims his place, I think he is very close. But with the form Shaw has shown recently, it's hard for me to now say Dalot. I will say, though, originally I was more of a Dalot. Well, at least I opted more for him. I think he was better for bonus points and I don't know. I also saw him as a bit more secure, less injury prone. But at the moment, I have to say Shaw is the best one, closely followed by Dalot. And you could even double up on them defensively, but I'm still not quite there yet. I don't have enough confidence in United defensively to go for that. Do you think West Ham is the biggest troll team this season compared to the last year performances? It's a great question. I think they're right up there for sure. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Chelsea's another one, but whenever I look at Chelsea, I don't like their FPL options in general, even Mason Mount, Havertz. So I'd say West Ham's up there as a troll team. I thought Bowen would be decent. A lot of people said he was overpriced at 8.5 million, but I thought it was deserved after what he did last season. But I have to say, and I was saying this early on, after we saw how West Ham started the season, it looked like Bowen's a bit of a one-season wonder, unfortunately. And, Ben Rama, he's been on and off. And you look at Antonio, he only really had 3 good game weeks at the beginning of last season. 3 really good game weeks, by the way. After that, just pure inconsistency. But yeah, you look at the rest, and Fabianski tends to do pretty well. Even this season, he hasn't been at it. But yeah, I think that's a good shout. West Ham are right up there in terms of troll teams, but I was never a big fan of most of their assets, I'll be honest. Dalot or pay the extra for Shaw? I'd say Shaw at the moment. Because of Dalot, he might still not reclaim his place. Malassi's been playing well recently, and he was rested against Bournemouth, so there's a few things to consider. We can go through the lineup, by the way, for United against Everton. So we'll do that right now, actually. So let's go to live score. I'm going to get this up right now. So I actually haven't taken a look at the lineup just yet, since I've been looking at your chats just now. So the lineup for United is David De Gea, Varane, Fernandes, Antony, Dalot, Shaw, Casemiro, Eriksen, Malacia, Rashford and Martial. So a very strong lineup. Once again, it looks like Shaw is playing as a centre-back. Very interesting stuff there for United. But yeah, I think Shaw, with that added versatility of being able to play in the left centre-back position, I think that enhances him as an FPL option. So I think he is worth the extra money over Diogo Dalot. We quickly go through the Everton lineup, although it's not going to be as interesting or important. Pickford, Gay, Coleman, Gray, Mikalenko, Godfrey, Cody, Onana, Malpai and Iwobi. So good lineups there from both teams considering what they have available. So Kane is 1 yellow card away from suspension. Does he have to avoid a yellow in his next game for his record to be refreshed? I believe so, Goldhead, but I might be wrong about that. I did see somewhere that Harry Kane, basically there's no risk of him being suspended against City. However, the likes of Saliba and Saliba and Saka, that's a bit different. They could still be suspended for the United game. And the way I see it, that is definitely possible. A fiery game against Spurs in the North London derby. But with Kane, I did hear that he could get away with it, basically. I'll have to double check that, though. In terms of the yellow card records to be wiped, it's after the 19th game. I believe the 19th game that the club plays. So, yeah, once again, I do need to check that. With some teams, playing fewer games like Arsenal and Man City, it does cause confusion. So I'm going to try check that and make sure there's no confusions there whatsoever. So... yeah, so Spurs would have played their 19th game after, the North London derby is basically their 19th game of the season. So I think if he goes through that unscathed, there is no risk of suspension going forward. So actually, I think he can be suspended against Man City. And with Arsenal players, the ones, bordering on 5 yellow cards, they have to go through the next 2 games unscathed. And obviously, they're big games against rivals. So, yeah, suspension is definitely possible. By the way, it's good to see so many of you still here. I know it's kind of an awkward time to do a stream. There will be a video out very soon, the best free hit team, and I'm looking to upload that on either Saturday or Sunday. That will give you an idea of transfers to make. That obviously could be out of date very soon because of the FA Cup games, how they impact the Premier League and Game Week 20 in particular. But if you haven't already, you know what to do. Drop this video a like. It really helps out the channel, and let's keep on pushing. Let's try to get this to over 100 likes. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's go back now to my team, since we've gone through the lineups, and United basically gone very strong here, so that'll be interesting to see. One thing to definitely keep an eye on, and some people have made a really good point of this, is to see which City defenders start in Game Week 20 or in Game Week 20 in the FA Cup. That could have a direct impact in terms of who starts in Game Week 20 there in the double game week, if they were to have one, of course. So let's go now through some other questions. Yeah, Abraham. So after Game Week 19, the thing is, though, it's a bit unlike... it's kind of a tough one to explain. I think you might be right, but because, remember, every single Premier League team had 1 game suspended, it then gets pushed on to the next game week, so Game Week 20, for example. And I think maybe you're right, Abraham. So how it could be is, for Kane, it's kind of a difficult one to say, really. I think Kane might have already avoided the risk, but Arsenal players still have 1 more game since they obviously have the game in hand against City later on. I have to double check it once again and see with more research. So who has a double game week? As things stand, Spurs and Man City have a double game week, but that could change based on the FA Cup. I actually put out Ben Crellin's tweet early in the stream, should I say, and we covered that. So basically, if one of those teams draw, they will not have a double. Not happy as a Man United fan that Lissandra isn't back in the 11 yet. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. I thought he would have been in the side already. Maybe for the next Premier League game, I'd say. Darwin and Cancelo out for Kane and Stones -4. Yeah, I think that's fine. Once again, I think nailing this right City defender is going to be tough. Akanji for me is the most nailed, but Stones is not a bad option. Is the FA Cup counted for red cards and yellows? Not for yellows. For red cards, yes. If a player gets a red card in the FA Cup, they will be suspended for the next league game. But yellow card, no. That's competition dependent. Haaland triple captain, I like it. The same goes for Harry Kane. I wouldn't go for anyone else, though. 10 players for Everton. 10 players for Everton. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the live score wasn't completely accurate there. Who wins Arsenal versus Man City? I'd love to say Arsenal, but I think Man City have won the last 7 games in the Premier League against Arsenal. I think City will definitely win at the Etihad. At the Emirates, I think a draw or maybe an Arsenal win, but it's just so tough to tell. I think if the game were played right now, I think Arsenal have a great chance, but I think City will grow into the competition, get better and better. So by the time the games come around, I think City will have the momentum. Sell Cancelo? Yeah, I'd say so. Where to find the upcoming double game weeks on Twitter? Well, there are several accounts you can follow. For example, Ben Crellin is the go-to guy for double game weeks and schedules and stuff, so that's one account. But in general, you'll find double game weeks in many. And you can also follow me, Dylan RCM. Anything that you see for double game weeks or blanks, you will see on my Twitter page, and I'll keep you up to date. Thoughts on Son? I just don't like him as an option. Far too inconsistent. Apart from, 3-4 game weeks, he's not, he's blanked in every single other game. Yeah, he scored a deflected goal against Palace, and he also had an assist removed, but really, the only reason you get him in is because of what he's done in the past and also his record against Arsenal and City. But honestly, I just don't like him right now. Wouldn't be surprised to see some key players for City be rested in the FA Cup. Yep, they have the depth as well to go for a second team, go for Alvarez and maybe Foden and Cancelo and get the job done. Opinions on going for Akanji or Stones? Yeah, I think we already went through this question. I highlighted it. I think that's the right play. I personally prefer Kanji right now, but like I said earlier, if Akanji's benched, or if, let's say, if Akanji starts and Stones is benched, then I would lean more towards Stones in that case for the Premier League game. I definitely captain Haaland over Kane. Spurs will barely get a shot on target across both games, in my opinion. I mean, look, City are the better team, yes. Spurs can have those games like against Villa where they look completely toothless, but Harry Kane always does well against Arsenal, and Spurs typically get penalties, especially in the home games against Arsenal. So, Kane could go absolutely missing. Yeah, even happened in the Emirates earlier this season. Obviously, the penalty was deserved in that case, but, one penalty changes everything, and I still think he'll get a return at least across both games, and I think he can match Haaland, if not outscore him. Ferguson, I think, is the best budget option up front, but I actually have a feeling that Welbeck will come back into the side eventually. He's now going to be in the squad this weekend for the FA Cup, so I'd be a bit concerned about that. But Ferguson as a budget option, he deserves to stay in the team. He's been great in the last 2 games. Why not? If, let's see what else we have. If Modric goes to Arsenal, would that make Martinelli a lot worse asset? I wouldn't say it would make him significantly worse, but it could take some minutes away, and it would also allow Arteta to sometimes maybe, start Modric in the Premier League and then start Martinelli in the Cup games and vice versa. The thing is with Modric, he can play on both flanks, and honestly, I wouldn't kind of go ahead of ourselves. It's, good to consider these things before they happen, but the way it's going, I'm not so sure if Arsenal will sign him, and Shakhtar Donetsk want like 80 million or more. I don't see Arsenal paying that, and if Chelsea enter the bidding war and Modric, would be happy to join Chelsea, I think he'll go there instead. Who would you sell Cancelo for? We've gone through this quite a lot of times. So Trippier, Botman, White, Shaw, and apart from those 4, who I think are the best defenders in the game right now, I would say either Akanji or Stones. The alternative would be just a downgrade to a Buena. Why sell Cancelo if there might be a double game week? Because he doesn't start games, mate. Yeah, he started against Chelsea, but then he got subbed off at half-time. And right now it looks like Ake and also Rico Lewis are the main fullbacks for Man City. And what Man City could also do is also go for John Stones as the right back. So it's not looking good for Cancelo. Which team to target, United defence or City defence if they both double? I would say United defence because they have more nailed-on players. They've got a great defensive record recently, and I could see a clean sheet against Leeds. Maybe not against City, but in the other game, if they were to get it, I would rather go for United. And also long-term, I think Shaw's the best one. Looking to adopt a non-template defender. What do you see about Brentford to see me through Shaw's next couple of weeks? That's not a bad shout at all. And actually, I talk about Brentford defensively in my best free hit team video. And Rico Henry or Ben Mee would be your best shouts and the best ways to go into it. I do prefer Raya to cover them defensively, but they are not bad options at all. And I think they are decent for the next couple of game weeks. Do I see a lot of clean sheets? Maybe 1 or 2 over the next 4 or 5, but still that should be enough for players around that price. Who would you start in Game Week 20 between De Gea or Ward? Ward, but if De Gea gets a double, then De Gea, of course. Cancelo to Lewis. It's not a bad shout, and if I had to kind of guess, who will get more minutes and starts in the double game week, it would be Lewis, but I think it's worth it. I'd probably go ahead with it. It could obviously backfire. That's the big problem. And like I said, I do prefer 4 other defenders, not to mention Akanji or Stones in the long term as well for City. Are you keeping Shaw for City? Well, I'm not going to sell him just because of one bad fixture. And United could have a double. We covered this already, depending on what happens tonight. And also in the other games, United could have a double in 20. And if that's the case, then I definitely wouldn't want to get rid of Shaw. He'd probably start, actually. Martinelli, Almiron, Odegaard, option in order. Almiron this week first. Second would be Odegaard and third Martinelli. Overall, it'd be Odegaard, Almiron, Martinelli in that order. But for this week, you got my answer there already. Almiron would be first. City defense is quite poor, to be honest. I wouldn't say they're poor, but Newcastle and Arsenal, I think, have better defences so far this season, and they also have better, more nailed-on players who are cheaper and offer much better value. So I don't quite see the big appeal behind City defenders right now, but that could obviously change late in the season. Gakpo or Mahrez for the upcoming fixtures? Mahrez, especially with the double, if City keep it. Would you replace Salah with KDB? If City keep their double, then yes, and that's what I'm looking to do. I'll talk about this more later in the week. I have an FPL curse of players. Whoever I get in, they blank. My friend started avoiding players who I get. That Almiron blank and Kane other week blank was because of me. I wouldn't look too much into that. The thing is also, if you kind of jump between player to player, for example, if you brought in Kane for Villa, then get rid of him against Palace, there's always going to be the risk that Kane will eventually score. You know, with these players, you have to be patient. Almiron, yeah, he's blanked in the last 2 games, but I wouldn't say it's because you got him in. It sometimes does feel that way, but trust me, that's not the case. Dylan, you ever played FM? Oh, £1. I wasn't aware of that, Goldhead. Maybe I will. Maybe I will give it a shot. I'm more of a console player anyway, and you know, with the type of laptop I have, it's kind of difficult to get my hands on PC games in particular because of the chip. But I will have a look. The thing is, I've kind of got other games at the moment that I'm, you know, playing and going through right now, more story-driven games. Do you think football is ungrateful, given how good Cancelo and Foden were just months or weeks ago? Well, football is a cruel game, and Pep Guardiola is ruthless. So I think Foden and Cancelo deserve more, especially Foden, but it is what it is. And Cancelo was also benched for Portugal, so there could be something behind the scenes as well. And when you have players like Rico Lewis, Grealish, Mahrez, etc. that step up, then it's not the biggest surprise in the world. Salah to KDB for a -8. Okay, so the way I'd go about it, so if you've already taken a -4, and it would be another hit to take, you know, Salah to KDB, then yeah, fair enough, I would do it. But would I make multiple transfers, so 2 or 3, just to do that? No. And obviously, my guess is you wouldn't need to do that because KDB is actually cheaper than Salah. Is it worth the hit? My answer is yes. I currently prefer Salah over De Bruyne, but is Salah keeping the team, or would you look to get rid of him? I agree. I think Salah's the marginally better option. However, with the double, I'm probably going to go for De Bruyne if City keep it. Long term, I think Salah is probably a sell. The same goes for De Bruyne. If they don't, you know, get their act together, especially with Liverpool looking so sloppy and De Bruyne being very inconsistent with FPL returns, you know, you've got Odegaard, Rashford, Martinelli, Almiron. They're half the price and they're much better in FPL. So I just don't see a need to go for these options right now. Should I take out Sterling for Mahrez, Nunez for Kane -4? Yes, I would. Nunez to Kane for sure. If I had to pick one, that's the transfer to do. How would you fill your City quota? Ederson or Lewis? I'd say Ederson. Dylan, thoughts about Gakpo? Same as it was last week and the weeks before. I would expect him to be available in Game Week 20. There's no doubts about that. But would I go for him just yet? No. You know, Liverpool are looking poor. You know, Gakpo still has to acclimatise to his teammates, and I just wouldn't be that sure. You know, we need to see what position he plays as well, what kind of formation or structure Liverpool change to. If not, they'll keep the same thing. But then, you know, how does Gakpo fit into that? So there's a lot of question marks. I wouldn't go for him just yet. And Liverpool have some poor fixtures. So, you know, you look at Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, Almiron, and Mahrez right now. There's a lot of options you can go to instead. Foden to Grealish, I'd rather go to Mahrez, but that's not a bad shout. With Grealish, I don't think he'll start both games. I think he'll start one and come off the bench in the other. How long should I persist with De Bruyne and Cancelo? With De Bruyne, I'd keep. With Cancelo, I'd sell. That's the way I'd probably, you know, go about it. I'll probably do a transfer tips video very soon, and I'll go through this in detail. Should I sell Walker for Lewis? It could backfire. Like I said earlier with another question, I could see Lewis getting more starts and minutes than Walker and Cancelo this week, so I think it's worth it, but just bear in mind it can backfire. What do you think of Foden to Mahrez and Andreas to Mitoma? I do like those transfers. With Mitoma, I think he's a better option than Andreas for the next few weeks. Having said that, though, Andreas is cheaper, and you also don't want to get into a situation where you have basically 8 attackers, so to speak, with 3 forwards and 5 midfielders. Then you're going to be in 2 minds about who to bench, and you're going to probably be very frustrated every single week when you see a lot of points on your bench. I mean, City defensive line is kind of lack the focus in the later minutes and constantly concedes a nonsense goal. I mean, look, City have been more vulnerable defensively this season. I agree with you. Even against Everton, it's a wonder goal. But how did Gray get into that position? It's poor. You know, Rodri lost the ball. You know, the closing down was poor. They gave him too much space. And, you know, I do agree with you. I think City have lost concentration in key moments in games this season, even against Brentford. You know, they were constantly opened up. But I still think they have one of the best defenses in the league. My problem with them is that no one is particularly nailed. When is the double game week confirmed? After the FA Cup games, and also I think the Carabao Cup games. That's when we have official confirmation. In terms of, you know, for example, United and Leeds, you know, if they were to get a double in 20, when would we know? Before the game week 20 deadline, but it would be later next week. It wouldn't be now for sure, or after the United game. City defender or Botman instead of Cancelo? Botman for me, honestly. Would you bring in Perisic? As a 1 week punt, yes. Long term, no. Long term, I'd rather go for a City defender or even better still, a second Newcastle defender, or downgrade that fifth defender slot to a Bueno or something like that, and focus your energy and your funds in other areas. Best Andreas replacement, I'd say Matoma if you want a cheap midfielder. I don't see the real need to sell Andreas though. Pep always experimenting versus Chelsea. Yeah, that is a good point. In the FA Cup final, well, yeah, in the FA Cup he has done it before against them in semi-finals, and also the Champions League final. I don't know what he was doing there. I play on a bang average laptop, it runs it fine. Yeah, like I said, it's not to do with the quality of the laptop. My laptop, I'd say, is quite good. The problem is the chipset and if it's compatible with these games. A lot of PC games I can't play because, you know, they're for Windows and not for Mac, basically. Can we consider Liverpool as a mid-table opponent now? You know, I wouldn't say they're a mid-table team because, you know, for example, if Arsenal, you know, were to go to Anfield, that's still one of the kind of games I'd expect Arsenal to drop points in. City lost there. So it just depends. At home, I think Liverpool are easier than they used to be. But at Anfield, they're still a force to be reckoned with. And even against Leicester, they probably should have drawn or lost. They still managed to find a way. It's just so difficult to win in that stadium. Who do I captain, Haaland or Kane? I don't see you going wrong with either. I'm personally favouring Kane right now, but both are fine. And I think I answered your question earlier. Tony instead of Mitra for a -4? No. As much as I like Tony, there are two things to worry about. One, his fitness. He's obviously injured right now. And two, is he going to be suspended? After those two things have been cleared, would I go from Mitrovic to Tony for a -4 here? It could pay off, but with those two things lingering in the back of your mind, it's definitely not worth a -4 hit right now. If he's completely cleared, then maybe I'd reconsider. Right now, no. Odegaard in for Andreas. Yeah, looks great to me. Once again, be aware, if you do that transfer, you could be in a situation with 8 attackers and you could sometimes have to bench someone like Odegaard or a Mitrovic and it could actually backfire. Yeah, I saw that Pep on Rico Lewis. He's our little Philip Lahm. I guess he'll be playing a lot. Yeah, he said that he's very important. And yeah, I saw some of his quotes. I actually didn't see the Lahm quote, but I saw him full of praise of Rico Lewis and that he'll play a more prominent role. And I don't see Rico Lewis and Cancelo playing at the same time. So it's a case of one over the other. And I think Rico Lewis is just ahead of the curve and ahead of the pecking order. Thank you, the Woodstock one. I appreciate it. Heading into Game Week 20 with no City Spurs defenders. I'm not really that fussed, to be fair. For Game Week 20 specifically, you know, building the best team for that game week, yeah, I would probably go for a City defender and also a Spurs defender. But, you know, with City, you've got so much rotation. Spurs aren't that great defensively, and they face Arsenal and City. So there's a lot of question marks with both teams, really. And when you've got Arsenal and Newcastle defenders, they offer better value. Luke Shaw could have a double as well in 20. I'd rather go in that direction, to be fair. Yeah, once again, Caroline, I like that transfer. I think Tony is much better than Darwin Nunez. But once again, don't do that just yet. Tony might not play for various reasons. Yes, he's unarguably one of the best defenses in the league, but the recent games show this kind of situation. Of course, I mean, there's a reason why they only kept 1 clean sheet since the restart. Even against Brentford just before, they conceded twice, and they could have conceded more, to be fair. Let's see what else we have. Botman start versus Fulham or Shaw bench? I'd start Botman. Welcome, Ahmed. Thank you very much for tuning in. I got both KDB and Salah. That looks fine. The thing is, if I'm being completely honest, as a freemium, my favourite and what I've gone for right now is Haaland, Harry Kane, and then it'd be De Bruyne if they get the double game week. So what I'm looking to do is probably do Salah to De Bruyne. Then in future weeks, I'll probably downgrade that to Odegaard. So that's probably the way I'm going to go about it. Idle and Cash playing out of position. Is he worth a punt at 4.6 million? I mean, there's not many defender options. You know, I always mention the same 4 names. Then I sometimes bring in a City defender or whoever has a double game week, really. And then if not, just downgrade to a Rico Lewis or a Bueno, for example. I don't trust Villa defensively, so my answer would be no. What do you think of Martial to Tony or Kane and Kulusevski to Almiron -4? I like all of those transfers. My favourite would be Harry Kane for sure. And then if you need to, Kulusevski to Almiron for a -4, I think that's completely worth it. Want to sell one of them to get Kane? What's your advice, says Ahmed? Oh, to sell one of them? Well, it has to be Salah as things stand. If City keep their double, I would sell Salah and keep De Bruyne. In the future, you could just downgrade both, really, and then find a way to get Harry Kane up front. Liverpool play like an open house. Well, yeah, You know, Van Dijk looks shaky. The midfield is so easy to run past. I think the midfield is the main issue for Liverpool, for sure. Would you do Darwin to Kane in one move for free? I wouldn't even consider it, mate. I definitely would. Just wait in terms of transfers in general, just because you might have more information. Injuries can happen in FA Cup, and also there could be a direct impact on the results in the FA Cup on Game Week 20. Apart from that, that transfer is very sensible. And would you add a -4 to replace Martial to Wilson Mitrovic? No, especially if United get a double, which is possible still. In that case, definitely keep Martial. But in future, I would move Martial on for either Mitrovic or Wilson. My preference is still Mitrovic, despite Wilson having better fixtures. Yeah, Ben Mee's a decent option. I wouldn't say he's a really good one, though. Brentford don't keep that many clean sheets, and with Ben Mee, he's got attacking threat, of course, but you've also got the Newcastle, Arsenal, United defenders, not to mention City, and also you can just go for a budget defender. We're talking about a 4 million option or less. How many hits if Man City, Tottenham, and Man United double? Maybe a -4. -8 at the very most. Honestly, a -4 would be enough. What are you aiming for by the end of the season? I think top 1k would be very difficult. It's possible, but very difficult in my situation. Top 10k would be great. Last season, I finished just outside it. I think this season, breaking into it would be great, but also very difficult to achieve. Top 50k, I'd be quite happy with, to be fair. And I'm not really that big on ranks and stuff. Obviously, you know, I'd rather finish higher, of course, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. The North London derby is always fiery and full of yellow cards, so aren't you worried about Kane getting a yellow? So yeah, like I said, I'm a bit confused, I'll be honest, in terms of the Kane situation. If he gets a yellow, will he be suspended for the next game? As far as I'm aware, I believe he'll be fine in that regard. The main issue is with Arsenal players who have played a game less than Spurs, with Saliba and also with Saka, for example, who are on 4 yellows as well. With Harry Kane, I'm not too worried anyway, to be fair. Obviously, he could get a yellow, but I don't remember him getting too many yellow cards against Arsenal in the past, and I don't really see that happening again. Of course, football's unpredictable. It could be fiery. Depends on the referee as well. There's a lot of things that can come into play as well. Brentford's football is so underrated and entertaining. They are physically and mentally strong and shows how they are really hard to play against. I think Brentford they got a bit of everything, basically, so they could play like Stoke with, you know, long throws, with set pieces and stuff, but they can also play, you know, really quick on the counter-attack, transitions, and kill you on the counter like they did against City. So they are entertaining. Outside the top 6, they're one of the most entertaining in the league. But they can also be, you know, quite difficult to play against, and they could also be quite, you know, frustrating, to say the least. I'm very impressed by the fact that Arsenal went down 1-3-0, to be honest. I don't see anyone else doing that this season. Even Man City, they're the only ones that could maybe do it, but they just lost to them, of course. Fernandes and Havertz out, Rodrigo and Kane in. Looks fine to me. I do like Rodrigo, but I also prefer the midfielders I've constantly mentioned in this video. I mean, it's early to tell. It could also just be a manager bounce. Will it be sustainable long term? I'm not so sure. But Emery's a good manager, and I could see him establishing Villa as a top half side. Do I see him establishing Villa as a Europa League team? I mean, it's possible, but I don't see it right now. Maybe next season for a year or two. But yeah, he's been good so far, but it's only been 4 games. Fabinho's done out here. Yeah, there's one Liverpool fan I know, and he said it for like over a year, maybe even 2 years, that Fabinho has been awful. And honestly, this is why sometimes with the Ballon d'Or, I just laugh at the lists and stuff that they make, because, you know, for example, you have players like Neymar and Messi missing out on the Ballon d'Or nominations, that you have Fabinho there just because of his team achievements. I mean, it's just ridiculous at this point. Should I start Arsenal defenders? Ideally, no. I don't see a clean sheet against Spurs, but, you know, worst case scenario, it's not the worst, you know, thing you could do. Apart from Thiago, the other midfielders are poor. I agree. And even those that, like Elliott, for example, they're young. You know, you've got to give them time. And I think the balance is just not there. And they need a new defensive midfielder and another midfielder who could do the kind of running and pressing that Wijnaldum used to do. Will Mount be back for the Fulham game? I can't tell you for sure. My gut feeling is yes, but I don't know the injury. Ferguson we already discussed. I mean, to be fair, we discussed both of them. So Ferguson, best budget option up front, but I'm not too sure if he'll be nailed long term. I think Welbeck will reclaim his spot eventually. As for Mitoma, I think he's the best budget midfielder in the game at that price and below. Thinking of bringing in Kane, Mitoma and De Bruyne for Salah, Havertz and Rodrigo if double gameweeks are announced. Looks completely fine to me, mate. I would probably do the same thing as you can. Thoughts on Foden and Cancelo? I'd probably sell both if you can, to be fair. They're both just far too frustrating, too much money to be constant headaches every single week, and I don't expect both of them to start the 2 games in double game week 20. if they get a double, of course. Are you sure that Kane would be a good captain? Well, yeah, because I personally think Kane will score a goal or two against Arsenal, and I think he can score a goal against City. Is he going to be better than Haaland? I can't tell you that for sure. I have a gut feeling that he could be, but that doesn't mean I'm completely sure about that. Do I think he's a good captaincy option? Of course I do. I support Arsenal in the Premier League. Kane just needs to see out one game for the yellow card suspension to become 10 yellow cards. Thank you, Mohammed. So with Kane then, if you are right, so he only needs one more game, then Arsenal would need 2 more games to then have the reset to 10 yellow cards. I think you might be right there, Mohammed. I appreciate that. Once again, after the stream is done, I will be doing the research and making sure I know that, definitively, because I don't want to give, mixed messages and stuff, but I think you are right. Should I keep Walker for the coming doubles or move to Stones next week, or keep Walker and hope he plays 60 plus minutes? I'd move to Stones. Stones is risky still, but I think he will play more minutes and get more starts than Walker in general. Thank you, Yami. Good luck with your exam, and I appreciate you tuning in. Darwin and Mount out, Kane and Matoma in from -4. Yes, I would do it. With Manchester United fixtures swing, would you consider Luka Dean as third besides White and Trippier? No. I said this last week, and I'm going to say again. After the Spurs game, obviously very impressive to keep a clean sheet there, but I don't trust Villa defensively. I wouldn't go for Luka Dean or Matty Cash or any of these options. Zinchenko coming back to Arsenal, he's been a big threat. He was one of the better players against Newcastle, and what he's really good at is maintaining possession, adding an extra body in midfield, and playing as an inverted fullback. He does that perfectly. Defensively is suspect, and he does make some mistakes, but yeah, he is a decent option. I think he's a bit injury prone though, and with Arsenal defenders, I do prefer Saliba, Gabriel, and not to mention Ben White. Brentford's so strong in their transition. Raya and Mia are consistent at the back as well. They've got a good team, there's no doubt about it. I like watching them play, but they're a bit of a hybrid team, which is quite interesting to see. Hazard or Salah in their prime? For me, it's easily Hazard. People forget what he'd done at Lille before Chelsea. I think they're two completely different players. So Salah, I think, is far more efficient. He's a much better goal scorer. But in terms of who do I prefer watching, it's Hazard, of course. He's the better dribbler, better playmaker as well. I don't think it's that simple, though. When you talk about who's the better in Premier League, history, most people would say Salah because of his goal record and also the trophies he's won there at Liverpool. With Hazard, it's a bit different. For example, he hasn't won the Champions League at Chelsea. But yeah, in their prime, who is better? It's really close. It is so difficult for me to say. That one season Hazard had, I think in 17-18, wasn't it? Or 18-19. His last season at Chelsea, he had 16 goals, 15 assists. It's absolutely unbelievable. I think I'd still go for Salah, but in terms of who do I prefer watching as a player, yeah, it's Hazard for me all day long. Dylan, how long do you wait to use your second wild card? I can't tell you that for sure, but for another double or blank for sure. I'm well set up right now. There's no need for me to use it. Maybe around Game Week 30, so could be Game Week 29 or something, around that period. I'd say later in the season, between Game Weeks 25 and 33, I could see myself using it, but I can't tell you for sure because I don't know what the doubles and blanks will be by then. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Bellingham, though, I think they still would need another midfielder, and would Liverpool spend that much money on Bellingham, and would they be able to win a war against City or Real Madrid against, for Bellingham's signature? I'm not so sure. For me, the most exciting game after the World Cup was Leeds this week. Leeds have a fire in their belly under Jesse Marsch. Yeah, there have been quite a few exciting games, though. It's like the Premier League never left, really, in my opinion. Yeah, Amrabat could be a shout. I've seen that before. The thing is, I'm not so sure if that will go ahead, to be honest. Why is Mitrovic still likely to play in FPL and not flagged? That's a good question. I think sometimes this happens when there's a double game week and a player is suspended for the second game of that double game week, but he won't play. Thoughts on triple Newcastle defence, Pope, Trippier, Botman? I like it. I mean, if I were to triple up on any defence, it would be Newcastle, but you're also depriving yourself of an attacker like Almiron, and my preference is 2 Newcastle defenders and 1 attacker, but honestly, I don't mind that. I don't mind it at all. Triple captain Haaland, yep, or Harry Kane. Any one of those would be great options. Out of Newcastle, Arsenal, who has the best chance of winning the Premier League? I think Arsenal. Newcastle are 8 points behind, and Arsenal have a game in hand on them. And Newcastle, I think, they're very good defensively, but offensively they still lack a little bit, I'd say. I think Arsenal have a much better midfield and attack And I think that's what makes the difference. Newcastle's defensive line is arguably better, and their structure, the defensive structure. But when you look at everything else, I'd say Arsenal have a better chance. Any thoughts on getting Trent? No. Liverpool are awful defensively. Trent costs over 7 million. And I just don't know when the clean sheets are going to come from. Liverpool are in the bottom 3, I think, of the fixture ticker that we showed earlier in this video. No. I was wondering what happened to Mount in the Chelsea game. He was injured just before the game started. I'm not sure what the injury is exactly, but let's wait and see if he's available against Fulham. My guess would be he will be, but let's see. Best Man City triple up if they have a double game week. I have Haaland, KDB and Foden. My favourite triple up in City would be Haaland, KDB and Akanji. Another defender to consider is Stones, or you could just go for Edison to cover them defensively. And I think Mahrez is a good shout, by the way. I like that. But I would probably say, yeah, in your situation, I'd do Foden out for Mahrez. Welcome, Jono. Good to see you once again. Do you think Arsenal can win it this year? Of course they can win it. Do I think they will? No. And I said this even weeks ago, even when the gap went to 7 points, I believe. I think City will be relentless. They've got far too much squad depth, and I personally don't see Arsenal signing the players they need in January to push them over the line. As you saw against Newcastle, they just lack that, depth in attacking areas to, make that difference. City were able to bring on Grealish and Mahrez, who combined for the goal against Chelsea. Arsenal brought on Tomiyasu because they had no one else really, apart from Fabio Vieira, no one else that could really make a difference in the attacking third. Thoughts on Wissa rather than Tony? I really like Wissa. Ever since I saw him against Chelsea, he caught my eye. Whenever he gets the minutes, he does well. Very unlucky not to score more against Liverpool too. I still would rather go for Tony though. Go fishing or golf? I've never done either actually. I think golf is more likely in my case, so that would be it. In your opinion, what Liverpool should do to bounce back? Sacking Klopp is not realistic. They lack money to spend as well. Also, the players are starting to get old. Jurgen Klopp is still one of the best managers in the world. Obviously, there is this kind of thing where certain managers, after a certain period of time, he's been there for 7 years, the same messages in the dressing room and stuff. But I think the issues run deeper than Klopp. It's about recruitment, and Liverpool haven't signed a midfielder since 2018, if I'm not mistaken, or 2019. I think apart from Thiago, they haven't signed anyone. That's just not good enough. Obviously, they signed Arthur on loan. These kind of signings just haven't worked. And also, Liverpool, it's kind of tough. It's not just recruitment. There's a lot of things, but I think the midfield is the biggest issue right now, and they need to address it. They can't leave that untouched. And players like Fabinho, I'd honestly sell them at this point. Do you think Haaland will beat Salah's goal record? Yes, I definitely think he will. Yeah, but to be fair, I think Vlahovic, that boat has probably sailed, and Frankie de Jong, I just don't see him going to United, to be fair, and they've already got Casemiro, so I think that's just paper talk. And similar to Ake, Akanji or Botman, I'd rather go for a Newcastle double up with Botman. If you were to go for a City defender, Jono, it would be Akanji. My subs are Bueno and Patterson. I'd go for Botman. Who should I bring in defence for the long term, except for Newcastle defenders? I'd say Ben White or Luke Shaw. Another one to consider, if you don't want to go there or already have them, would be someone like Akanji. Currently I have Salah. Should I get KDB? Once again, look, obviously I'm doing this stream very early on, and a lot could change, and that's why I've been very hesitant about doing videos recently. Right now, I'd say yes, it's worth going for KDB, but don't do the transfer just yet. Wait for the City game in the FA Cup, wait for the Liverpool game and all of that. And once we see the impact of the FA Cup on Game Week 20, and once we know City have the double, then I would make that move. But if KDB only has one game, and that double is taken away somehow, then I would just keep Salah. Yep, Darwin to Kane looks really good. Thoughts on triple Arsenal midfield? I've said this before, I'm not a huge fan of it, but if you are looking to be different, stuff like that can make the difference. Also, Newcastle defensive triple up. I don't mind that at all. I would rather go for two of those, probably Odegaard and Martinelli, and then go for a Ben White in defence, but that does not look bad at all. I hope Chelsea ended up getting Modric at the end. Realistically, Arsenal now having Martinelli and Saka, so on player side, no point to join a club that will likely be benching him for most of the time. The thing is, though, Arsenal need that squad depth. Smith Rowe will be back and available against Oxford on the 9th of January, and I think he will start that game. But you still got Nelson and Jesus out. I think Modric will get plenty of game time, and in that period between when he plays and before Jesus comes back, he could establish himself as a first teamer. I could see him taking minutes off Saka and Martinelli, in particular Martinelli. So I think Arsenal would be the better pick out of the two. With Chelsea, I don't know, there's too much instability there. The manager's under pressure already. And also with Chelsea, I don't know. I just don't know if that is the environment for him to thrive in. Of course, I could be wrong. And Chelsea, I think, will be good in a few years' time, but there will be a lot of tough times ahead for them. I think he will do a good job with Arsenal now. And a lot of reports are saying if it comes down to personal preference and where he wants to go, he would pick Arsenal. But let's just wait and see. I think Chelsea would completely blow Arsenal out of the water in terms of a transfer, kind of battle and who has the most money. I think Gakpo will be a good signing for Liverpool, but will he, change them from, 5th or 6th place to Champions League, into a Champions League spot? I don't think that's enough. Liverpool need to sign a midfielder or two. Otherwise, they can forget this season, and Newcastle United will probably finish above them, and Liverpool could struggle for some time until they address that position. Like I said, I like it. I like triple captain Haaland. The same goes for Kane. I like it. Will I do it? Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to reassess, and I'm also going to be looking out for the FA Cup games. I hope things get better for Liverpool when Diaz and Jota come back from injury. Yeah, there's two other players that are really crucial. And also, in the case of Jota, a really good goal scorer. Diaz, the best dribbler at the club. So they will be very important. KDB hat-trick incoming. I don't know about that, but I think the hauls are coming, in Game Week 20. Gabriel, White or Saliba? Ben White. Cucurella to Ben Mee for the next 3 fixtures. It's not a bad shout. If you were to go for anyone apart from the usual 4 or 5 that I mentioned, I think Ben Mee would be up there. Chelsea transfer strategy does not seem to work. Hundreds of millions spent for no big outcome. Yeah, I agree. I think they are on the right track with some players like Enzo Fernandez, but 120 million is far too much. And when you've got Ted Boehly as the kind of director of football there, things are poorly run at the moment. They need to put the right people in place right now, for example. Just like Arsenal have done in recent years. Before that, they were a complete mess. But structure is so important. Look at City. Everything is, synchronized. They do the best business of any team. They've got the most money, but they also make do the best business. And that's why they've dominated the league for so many years now. Getting a strong bench depth is obviously good. Yes, but I'll be honest, I could see him getting game time as well. And there could also be a bit of, rotation in certain Premier League games and also cup competitions. I think it could be more of a case of just 3 wingers rotating in amongst themselves. Best FPL memory, that's a good question. I remember my worst one, which is probably Mane, triple captain, and he came off at 40 minutes with an injury in a double game week, and Salah ended up scoring like 16, 17 points, and he was my vice captain. So that was my worst, and the other one would be selling Trent when he got 24 points, and that's my fault. I don't know why I did that. My best FPL memory? I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's a good question. Because a lot of my biggest rank rises have actually, oddly enough, come from Tottenham players, but I actually don't celebrate that. I don't find that, I don't know, fulfilling or satisfying, I guess. So I'd have to think about that. I'm not so sure my best FPL memory is. Play Ward or Kepa for Game Week 20? Kepa. That's what I'm doing. Hazard Ligue 1 title, 2 French Player of the Year, 2 Europa Leagues, 2 Premier Leagues, 1 English PFA Player of the Year, 1 Carabao Cup, 2 FA Cups, 1 Champions League, 2 La Liga titles. True, the Champions League title, though, he didn't really contribute to that. But the rest, and the La Liga titles, but the rest, yes, he was obviously a big part, with Lille, obviously, winning that league title before joining Chelsea. Like I said, I do like Hazard. He's a great player to watch, but I think longevity also has to come into it, and I know Salah has been great since 2017. Hazard was great, you could say from 2013 to 2019, but also the big issue with Hazard is he had 1 or 2 years in that spell. I think if I can remember correctly, 2013-14 and 15-16, where he was completely awful. Let's be honest. I think that's what lets Hazard down. Do you think Potter will last to at least 2024? I think he will. But he has to get the results. He has to do something in the meantime, because otherwise, Ted Boehly could just be absolutely ruthless like Abramovich was. And more importantly, fan pressure could start to build. And even if Ted Boehly doesn't want to sack him, he might feel like he has to at some point. But my kind of unpopular prediction would be that he will stay until 2024. Do I think he'll stay beyond that? I'm not so sure. Currently have Ward in goal, looking to change. I have 0.8 million in the bank. I'd go for either Raya or Kepa, to be honest, because when you're looking at either the goalkeepers, Edison, Nick Pope would be the standouts. Is keeping Cancelo worth it? I'd still say he's worth selling because I don't see him starting both in the double. And also, beyond that, is he going to start games and be first choice? I don't think so right now. Also, is holding KDB a viable option? Yes, he's been disappointing FPL-wise, but I think he's also been very unlucky. I would keep him. Play Ward or Kepa? Kepa, like I said before. If I'm the manager, I'll be really... I'd have a real big headache on distributing the game time among these good players. Yeah, true, but I would back Arteta to do the right thing there. I'll be honest, though, I don't see Mudryk going to Arsenal, but let's wait and see. Thank you, Comet Bird. Good job on the great week, Dylan. Thank you very much. What do you think about Darwin and Mount to Kane in a term of 2 free transfers? As things stand, they look great. I think Mount could do well against Palace if he's fit, but there's no reason why you shouldn't do those transfers. Just wait, just in case, for the FA Cup games to conclude. See if Spurs have a double in the end or not. Remember, if they draw, their double could be lost. So that does play a big part because they'll have a replay in the FA Cup. But if not, I think that looks fantastic. Salah to KDB for a -4 if City have a double game week. I'd say yes. I'd probably go for it. Do you think Potter's close to getting sacked? That's a good question. I'd say he's quite close. Not like borderline on a knife's edge, but I'd say he's veering towards that stage, but not quite just yet. Zachary and the youngsters helped Chelsea stay in that game versus City. Yeah, even you could say they could have gotten something out of that game. They had chances, but City's quality in the end was the difference. And I don't know what Kepa was doing for the goal, by the way. Pope or Kepa? Well, I think Pope is the better option per se, but the reason why I'd probably go for Kepa is because he's cheaper. He makes a lot of saves, gets bonus points when Chelsea keep a clean sheet, and also I like Botman a lot at 4.4 million. So I'd go for Kepa as a result. Should I keep Trossard or sell him? I'd sell Trossard. That Havertz captain still hurts when Salah got a hat-trick. Yeah, I'll be honest, that was probably one of my better decisions in FPL, one of the better FPL moments when he scored the hat-trick against United. So that's up there for me. But yeah, I can feel for those that captain Havertz. We all experienced something similar this season. I can't remember what the situation was. Maybe when we captained Salah instead of Haaland. I'm not sure exactly what the situation was there. Yeah, I don't think that will happen. And I hope Messi doesn't go to City now because City will just run away with it. Imagine Messi, Foden on, the wings, you could say. Messi drifting into the middle. You got De Bruyne and Haaland. I mean, it would just be the Bundesliga. KDB for Mount or Roll, especially if City double? Well, if City have a double, I'd bring in KDB, that's for sure. Which club from Argentina do you support? Rosario Central. That's the team that Di Maria came from, and Messi supports Newell's Old Boys. The rival of that team is Rosario Central. Do you support any club in Europe other than Arsenal? No. I do like some clubs, like Valencia and stuff like that, but I don't support them. Hi Dylan, choice between Botman in, bench Shaw, playing Trippier, Perisic or Odegaard, in for Andreas, playing KDB, Almiron, Rodrigo, or Tony in for Havertz, playing Kane, Haaland. Okay, there's a lot of situations there, so I need to think about this in silence for a little bit. So what would I do? I'd probably go for... Yeah, I'd go for the last option, Tony in for Havertz, playing Kane and Haaland. But remember, there's a lot of question marks surrounding Tony right now. Foden not as shining as much as he did last season. Well, to be fair, he's not getting the minutes, so it's difficult for him to shine anyway. Arsenal not going to go for Rice. And Arsenal's big priority right now is attackers, a winger and a striker. And if they were to go for a party kind of backup, that's completely fine. I've been calling out for that for a long time now. But to spend like 60 million or more on Rice as a backup, that's not going to happen. I just don't see that happening ever. Rice to Chelsea is much more likely. I'd say Moyes should be closer to the sack than Potter. Oh, he definitely is. That's a great shout. I think he is the closest manager to the sack right now. If he gets another loss or two, he could be gone. I like it. I think Almiron's the best option at that price and below, even over Mitoma, who I also like. People say Hazard's career finished at 29, but it started at 18, which is 11 years. Salah currently started at Roma when he was 23 and he's 30 now. Yeah, but once again, there are 2 years where Hazard was absolutely awful. 13-14 and 15-16 where he scored like 1 or 2 league goals. I think that was just absolutely awful, and that really lets him down. Hi Dylan, is Ivan Perisic good with Gameweek 20? Yes, he features in the best free hit team video. Be sure to check that out in the weekend when it's out. Yeah, Perisic is a decent option. When you look at the fixtures, the chances of clean sheets are quite slim, but I wouldn't rule it out. I think if they were to keep a clean sheet, it would be against Arsenal, and one attack and return is definitely doable. Perisic has got 5 attack and returns this season with those assists. I think he's pretty good. Yeah, Aymar used to play for Valencia. Also, Kempes, obviously that was way before my time, but quite a lot of Argentinians have gone through Valencia. Kili Gonzalez, I believe, is another one. Is Ivan Perisic? Yeah, we went through that, mate. Potter doesn't seem to be the chosen one after all. Harry Potter's a bit different to Graham Potter, to be fair. Do you think Darwin will get to 10 goals in the next 20 games? I think so, but not an FPL option for me. Thank you, Thai. Good to see you once again. Potter might not be the best manager to take Chelsea forward. Potentially, but it's really difficult to judge him. You know, he hasn't had a transfer window yet. None of these players are his players, and what Chelsea did was criminal. You know, they backed Tuchel in the summer with 250 million, 300 million, with his own players like Aubameyang, and then they sack him just a few, weeks later, and then they bring in Potter, a completely different style of play, a different, project, and looking more long-term. You've got to give it time, in my opinion. Should I sell Trossard? Yes, I probably would sell Trossard. I think that concludes it for today. We've answered a lot of questions. If you have any more that you want to post towards me, then leave them down in the comment section below. And be sure to drop this video a like, because we've been going at it for the last... an hour and 45 minutes. We've answered so many questions, and it would be greatly appreciated if that would also be reciprocated with a like and also with a subscription to the channel. We're trying to get to 25 subscribers, so if you haven't already, be sure to do that as well. Consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, and also joining us on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. The links on the description below. The same goes for the Patreon, patreon.com/DylanRCM, and also becoming a channel member, which you can do by clicking the join button, and there are several tiers there, and you can get early access to videos exclusive, by the way. For example, those members and patrons right now, they can already watch the best free hit team video, which is already available for them, and it will be available for the general public in a few days time as well. So be sure to check all of that out in the description below. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. I'm going to try quickly go for any last questions or comments, but no guarantees whatsoever. And obviously the Man United game has just started. Besides the comeback of Tuchel, I don't see who'll be making a big difference on this Chelsea. Yeah, that is fair enough. That is a good point. I'll go back to the screen, by the way, might as well, before we quickly go off. Yeah, Tuchel, I think it was the wrong decision to sack him, but I could understand why it happened, and honestly, it was just a matter of time, it seemed, but I think he should have been given another opportunity. Anthony just scored. Thank you, Midnight. Should we do transfers Sunday night to avoid rises in price? I mean, look, that could be the way to go, Adam, but there could still be more that could influence Game Week 20. Or at least, you might not have confirmation of United's double, as an example, until later in the week. So be aware of that. With Man City and Spurs, yeah, fair enough. After their games, that's completely fine. You'll just know whether they have the double or whether it'll be removed or not. With United, it's a bit different, though. Sorin and Ayala was in that Valencia too. Yep, really good players under Rafa Benitez. Rashford returned once again. Yeah, Everton absolutely awful. I mean, how they got a draw against Man City, I'll never know, to be honest. Respect as well, Chris. Thank you very much. And also thank you to Nyogan. I think I pronounced that wrong, by the way. You can just correct me after, and I'll address that for next time. Who should Man United go for in the transfer window? Good question. I think United need a striker, so I'm not sure exactly who they go for, but a striker for sure. Vlahovic is rumoured to be linked. He's apparently going to leave Juventus. You've also got Morata linked, but I think United could do better than them. Thank you, Badr, as well. Much appreciated. Thank you, Without Malice. And Wei saying, always a pleasure. Thank you, Diogo. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, John. Always good to see you on here. Ken says, hi, Dylan. What's the best option? Salah to De Bruyne for free, or Darwin and Mount out for Kane and Matoma -4? I'd say the -4, mate. The yellow card risk is obviously a big one with Kane, but I think he's the best premium in the game besides Haaland, so I'd go for that. Thank you, Eric, as well, and I appreciate that. What do you think of Marsh? Solly Marsh as an option? No. Solly Marsh, no, I wouldn't go for him. I'd rather go for Matoma, but he's not a bad choice. I think Brian have plenty of decent options, but the way I'd go about it is Matoma first, so long as he stays in the side. Then probably I'd look at someone like McAllister after, in terms of Brighton midfielders. Yeah, thank you, Alex, for that. I might have a look, but to be honest, the game's probably over already. Thank you, Abraham. Good to see you, and I'll see you very soon again. And thank you, okay. If United get a double, do you keep Martial or get Kane? I'd still get Kane, mate. How do you see Enzo's future at this situation? I think Benfica will keep him until the summer, and then he'll go to Madrid or maybe Liverpool. Even City could be in there, as always, but yeah, I don't see him going to Chelsea, especially after, the breakdown in talks, and I think Benfica have been left aggrieved at the situation. Kane to Martial from -4, I would, but once again, wait and see for the Spurs game first, see what the result is. If they draw and they have no double game week, just keep Martial. But if Kane has that double, I'd go to him. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that very much. The next stream will probably be the deadline stream. So the next deadline, I'd probably have to check that. So the next deadline is on the 13th of January. So we'll probably do a deadline stream around 6 p.m. UK time, 2 hours before the deadline. Wait, no, I'm dumb, aren't I? Yeah, I'm dumb. No, 8 p.m. is when the game starts, 6:30 deadline, so 4:30. We'll probably be streaming by 4:30 or 5 p.m. UK time. Obviously, you'll see it before. I tend to set up the streams quite early. So yeah, Friday, 13th of January, so in a week's time from now. So good practice to get used to these Friday streams again. Thank you a lot as well, Manuri. Very much appreciated. Darwin replacement other than Kane, Haaland, Ivan Toney, if he's fit and if there's no suspension. Thank you to everyone. Take care. It's been a pleasure as always. Good luck. Enjoy the football. There's obviously a lot of FA Cup games to go. And let's see what happens in the Premier League. But there's so much still to offer. We're only in Game Week 20 and we could have another set of doubles here for Man City and Spurs and maybe even Man United. Let's wait and see. But good luck. I wish you all the best and I'll see you very soon.